A newly emerged report narrowed down the potential release window of Persona 6, in addition to reiterating some previous rumors about its target platforms and a potential Persona 3 remake. The latest information about the latter surfaced online just a few days back, with one source claiming that the Persona 3 remake is planned to be announced at the next Xbox showcase. Unlike the Persona 3 remake, Persona 6 was already confirmed to be in development by Atlus back in July 2021. However, the Sega-owned Japanese studio shared no new information about the next installment in its long-running RPG franchise ever since. Persona 6 is targeting a late 2024 release. The same source also alleged that Persona 6 is going to be a PlayStation 5 exclusive, which is something that he already claimed back in early 2022. Though, the leak hasn't ruled out the possibility that the game eventually makes its way to Xbox. He remains adamant that Atlus is currently only developing Persona 6 for Sony's current generation console. The leaker doesn't believe Persona 6 is ready to be unveiled during the May 24th showcase, which became true eventually. The insider also reiterated recent reports about a Persona 3 remake being on the horizon, stating that the game will be announced at the upcoming Xbox showcase. Microsoft's next gaming event is scheduled to take place on June 11th. For example, he was among the first to report on the existence of Metroid Prime Remastered and Fire Emblem Engage. Although he incorrectly predicted that both will be launching in the second half of 2022 instead of early 2023. More recently, he gave a pretty accurate account of the Silent Hill 2 remake prior to its announcement, including a later confirmed claim that Konami's upcoming survival horror isn't coming to Xbox consoles. Moreover, his specific claim that the next mainline Persona game is targeting a holiday 2024 release dovetails with another recent report suggesting Persona 6 has been delayed after initially being planned to launch in 2023. Atlus recently updated one of its domains, giving more credence to the possibility of a Persona 3 remake, along with its possible title and release date. As discovered by Persona Central, this update to the P3RE domain is similar to past updates that have been made regarding games that Atlus previously published. To summarize, the domain had been moved from the Japanese domain registrar name servers, also known as Oname, to Atlus' own AWS, Amazon Web Services, name servers. Based on prior history, when a change like this has been made, it indicates that the game will be revealed soon. Plenty of Persona series spin-offs and media were announced within a few weeks after their name server change. Shortly after this name server change was made known, the same Twitter user, MBKKSSTBHZ5, dropped the name of this Persona 3 remake, claiming it will be titled Persona 3 Reload, according to a translation by Panheim. The title is a nod to the evokers that the characters use to summon their personas in-game. Furthermore, they state that Persona 3 Reload is scheduled for this winter, at least before the end of 2023, possibly to be released this November. This remake will also launch on both PlayStation and Xbox systems. P5T and Persona 6 is also apparently going to be revealed this year. A newly surfaced domain registration suggests that Atlus is possibly planning yet another Persona 5 spin-off. This turn of events comes mere months after a similar move hinted at the much-rumored arrival of a Persona 3 remake. Atlus originally followed up on the massive success of Persona 5 with rhythm game Persona 5 Dancing in Starlight, which debuted on the PS4 and PS Vita in 2018. The company's P-Studio division then partnered with Omega Force on Persona 5 Strikers, an action RPG in the style of Omega's Dynasty Warrior games. Developed for PC, PS4, and the Switch, Persona 5 Strikers released to critical acclaim in 2021. It would appear that Atlus might be adding yet another game to the Persona 5 universe in the near future. With Twitter user MBKKSSTBHZ5 reporting that someone has registered the p5t.jp domain on May 16th. While the recently uncovered registration doesn't have any publicly available ownership information attached, that's been a standard practice with new Atlus domains for several years now. Namely, the company's marketing partner, Ryu's office, began obfuscating its domain registrations in late 2021, after such activity inadvertently revealed the arrivals of both Persona 5 Royal, its two existing spin-offs, and several other Atlus titles. Even if the P5T domain does belong to Atlus, there's always a chance that the company registered it defensively in order to protect its existing trademarks, inhibit copycats, and the like. After all, the studio has been sitting on multiple Persona 5 related Japanese domains that haven't amounted to anything since 2018, including P5B, P5U, and P5M. Another, less likely explanation is that the P5T domain is related to Blackwing's upcoming mobile game Persona 5 The Phantom X. Given how the title in question is a turn-based strategy game and in light of the fact that P5X.jp is not a registered domain as of May 24th, Atlus might advertise the game under a different name, perhaps something along the lines of Persona 5 Tactics, in its home market. Blackwings just concluded the mobile game's first beta test in early April, so the timing of this domain registration does coincide with the possibility that Persona 5 The Phantom X will be releasing in the near future. While Atlus has previously registered a bunch of domain names that never got anything related to them unveiled, an update indicates that Atlus may be gearing up for its official unveiling soon. This update to the P5T domain is similar to past updates made to Persona 5 related media and games before they were announced. In short, the website has been moved from the Japanese domain registrar name servers, also known as Oname, to Atlus' own name servers. Whenever these changes are made in the name servers, this usually indicates that a game will be officially announced very soon, with past reveals having happened almost within 2 weeks of these updates. Previous examples include Persona Q2's domain being moved to Atlus name servers, with the game's official announcement happening almost a week later at a Persona music concert. Other games like Persona 5 Royal and Persona 5 Strikers were teased shortly after their name servers were changed. There are a couple of upcoming events that would be a possible platform for Atlus to unveil what this P5T project is. The first is Summer Game Fest 2023, which will take place less than a week from now, on June 8th. There is also the Xbox Games Showcase a few days later on June 11th. Aside from being a brand new spin-off game in the franchise, it could also possibly be related to the aforementioned Persona 5 The Phantom X mobile spin-off. One theory posits that since P5X doesn't have its own domain yet, this one could be for its possible international title, with Persona 5 Tactics being thrown around as one that could be used if the game makes it out of China. The next wave of Persona-related news is expected to arrive shortly. Speaking of release rumors, Ubisoft's mysterious open-world Star Wars game could arrive sooner than many fans have predicted, at least according to a new rumor. While EA has been the primary publisher of new Star Wars video games since 2015, Lucasfilm has since announced that it would be working with other AAA companies on interactive adventures set in the fabled galaxy far, far away. One of the first projects to come in the wake of this is an open-world title developed by Ubisoft's Massive Entertainment, the studio largely known for its work on the Division series. Very few official details about this Ubisoft-published Star Wars title have surfaced since it was announced back in early 2021, but it is said to be drastically different from Massive's past projects. Currently dubbed Project Helix, this new game will reportedly allow players to explore the Star Wars galaxy using a mix of vehicles from the movies and brand new ones. Recent rumors have compared the game world to the one found in No Man's Sky, and playtesters were reportedly hired in December to help with the project. There is currently no release date for Project Helix, but a new rumor suggests that it could be launching as early as next year. A pair of unverified sources have told Kotaku that Ubisoft's open-world Star Wars title might not make the company's goal of being released sometime this year due to development not progressing as well as the company has hoped. However, everyone involved seems optimistic about the game being Ubisoft's next big hit, and it will most likely launch in the next fiscal year between April 2024 and March 2025. So far, Ubisoft itself has declined to comment on these claims. It's no secret that Ubisoft has struggled to get AAA releases out over the past year, with the publisher's only major titles for 2022 being Mario + Rabbids Sparks of Hope and Just Dance 2023. Ubisoft Singapore's Pirate Simulator Skull and Bones was initially set to launch this year, but was delayed until some unspecified time between 2023 and 2024, and Beyond Good and Evil is nowhere to be found. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, which is said to have inspired Ubisoft to pursue work on a Star Wars game, was originally going to be released last year before being held back for 2023. Despite these setbacks, Ubisoft remains committed to releasing 8 new games within the next year. While it doesn't look like Project Helix is going to be one of these titles, Massive's open-world Star Wars game could arrive as soon as 2024 if these latest rumors are to be believed. The future seems bright for Star Wars gaming fans thanks to last month's Star Wars Jedi Survivor and upcoming games like Respawn's untitled Star Wars FPS. And Project Helix sounds like it could be a promising addition to the long-running franchise if all goes well. Ubisoft has provided a much-needed update on the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake, but it isn't one that fans will be very happy with. The nostalgic remake has been in development over the past 3 years, but Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake has encountered several setbacks along the way, and it is still far from being released. The Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake was originally announced in September 2020 during the Ubisoft Forward event but was met with a lot of criticism due to the game's underwhelming graphics. The developers were quick to address it, reassuring the fans that the actual game would look much better. Despite the initial disapproval, I'm really excited about it thanks to the value it held. However, things only went downhill after that as the game went through multiple delays, where reports of it being in development hell surfaced, and eventually, Ubisoft Montreal took over development from Ubisoft Mumbai and Pune, which delayed the game indefinitely. Since then, Ubisoft has reassured time and again that the game isn't cancelled, but fans aren't happy with the latest update. This update comes via a post on the official Ubisoft website featuring a short Q&A session with Prince of Persia: Sands of Time Remake's game director, Michael McIntyre, and producer, Jean-François Naud. They provided an in-depth update on the state of the game, but the one thing that stood out was the current development stage. We're in conception right now. Since we took over the project, we've been looking at feedback from the community and finding our own way of delivering the game. Now, we're building up the team, defining the priorities, putting prototypes together, testing elements, and looking at how we can include community feedback in the development as well, Jean-François Naud said. In addition to this, they also mentioned that players won't hear anything on Prince of Persia: Sands of Time this year, but reaffirmed that the team is working hard to develop it. In terms of other updates, they also mentioned how much importance the game holds for the studio and how important it is to approach it as a remake as opposed to a remaster. Aside from this, they also confirmed that a lot of the original mechanics will remain intact, but will also be refined so the game feels balanced. In an article published on the official Ubisoft website, the publisher directly addressed a handful of the most common questions regarding a Sands of Time remake and potential remakes of its sequels. Ubisoft firmly stated that there are currently no plans to remake any other Prince of Persia game besides the Sands of Time as previously announced. This is no doubt deals a blow to any gamer who had hopes of playing a modern interpretation of the classic PS2 trilogy. Ubisoft has since cancelled and refunded Prince of Persia remake pre-orders. Ubisoft has previously reiterated to its commitment to a Prince of Persia remake, and the recent post on its website makes clear that it is solely focusing on Sands of Time. Though, even that project is on shaky ground. Originally set to be released in January 2021, the Sands of Time remake release date was eventually pushed back to March 2021. It was eventually postponed indefinitely. At least one cause for the indefinite delay could be lackluster fan reaction to the remake's trailer, which many deemed as visually unappealing and failed to capture the magic and wonder of the original. Initially co-developed by Ubisoft Mumbai and Ubisoft Pune, both based in India, the remake project has since been shifted over to Ubisoft Montreal, the developer behind the original 2003 release of Sands of Time. It's safe to say that the troubled development of the Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remake has had a ripple effect on any plans for the series Ubisoft may have had in the cards. If it is unable to properly develop a Sands of Time remake that meets its own internal standards and the standards of longtime fans of this revolutionary series, then there's no way Ubisoft would be able to properly honor the legacy of its sequels. It all starts with the oft-delayed Sands of Time remake, which, according to Ubisoft, currently has no release date. Ubisoft's trajectory shifted drastically over the year, shelving multiple projects to focus on the cash cows. A recent report also suggested that it was betting big on its Assassin's Creed series, and plans to increase the size of teams working on various Assassin's Creed titles by 40%. Nevertheless, Ubisoft's reassurance regarding the Prince of Persia: Sands of Time remake has been appreciated by players who appreciated the fact that the game is getting the attention it deserves. Prince of Persia is one of my favorite universe. I hope Prince of Persia survives, and doesn't get lost in the Assassin's Creed storm. RGG Gotoku Studio, the developers behind the Like a Dragon series, announces the date for this summer's RGG Summit, which will likely feature more news about Like a Dragon 8 and Gaiden. Both of these games are going to follow up on the plot threads that were introduced with Yakuza Like a Dragon, the game's soft reboot with Ichiban Kasuga taking up the reins as the series' main protagonist. The 8th numbered game is a direct sequel to the 7th mainline game, while Gaiden will be an interquel that explains how previous protagonist Kiryu Kazuma gets tied into the events of Like a Dragon 8 off of the heels of Yakuza 6. Like a Dragon 8 will be continuing the RPG gameplay that was introduced with Yakuza Like a Dragon, with both Ichiban Kasuga and Kiryu Kazuma getting their own party. Meanwhile, the Like a Dragon Gaiden The Man Who Erased His Name spin-off will focus on a retired Kiryu by himself, who has taken up being a monk. Unlike the aforementioned 8th game, Like a Dragon Gaiden will be going back to its roots with the action brawler style fans are familiar with. Fans will likely get more information about both these games this June. A tweet from RGG Studios' official Twitter account announces the date for RGG Summit, a showcase that will be held on Thursday, June 15, 2023, at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or in Japan, in the afternoon due to time zone differences. It asks fans to stay tuned for more details about the live stream, which will be revealed in the future. This June timeline will place it about a week after Summer Game Fest, which Sega will be participating in as well. It's unknown if Summer Games Fest will feature either of these games before this RGG Summit event. The previous RGG Summit event that was held last year took place just a day before the Tokyo Game Show 2022, which promised the reveal of a brand new entry in the series. Not only did it reveal Like a Dragon 8, but it also revealed the spin-off with brand new cinematic trailers. It is likely a safe bet that this upcoming event will feature one or both of these games, as Gaiden is set to release later this year, though no specific dates have been given yet. Like a Dragon 8 is scheduled to release next year, though much like Gaiden, a launch date hasn't been disclosed yet. Perhaps this event will give both games a more specific release window for fans to look forward to and maybe even gameplay. For now, we will need to wait until June to see what RGG Studio is cooking. Devolver Digital has confirmed they will be returning with another summer showcase show with their signature unhinged style, Devolver Direct. Devolver Direct 2023 will be held on June 8 at 3 p.m. Pacific Time. Devolver Direct 2023 will see the return of the world's most beloved video game mascot, Volvi. The teaser trailer hypes Volvi up, shown to have appeared in various Devolver-published games. "I'm back, gamers," the iconic rodent with one oversized arm proclaimed. Will Volvi evolve or evolve throughout the course of the show? Place your bets. Devolver Direct has been great at parodying game culture and pointing out silly fads of the year. 2022 saw the video game singularity, where all games converge into one thanks to Mechasuda51 poking fun at how game franchises cross streams ever so often with collabs, as well as the many gaming companies acquiring each other and consolidating. 2021 was the year of the Devolver Max Pass Plus, mocking the rise of subscription services. 2023 seems to bring back the 90s for some reason, but we shall see what the indie publisher has to offer. Aside from the jokes delivered with exceptional production value, it is a proper showcase live stream with video game reveals. I'm looking forward to getting a diverse lineup of innovative games and, of course, the drama Devolver Digital showcases always provides. Capcom has announced a new showcase event featuring news and updates on its latest games. Capcom is one of the biggest publishers in the gaming industry, and it's already having an amazing 2023 thanks to a few big releases. So far, Capcom has released Resident Evil 4 and Street Fighter 6 to gamers' acclaim. The publisher also launched the PlayStation and Xbox versions of Monster Hunter Rise, which was previously only available on PC and Switch. Now, Capcom has confirmed that it will be hosting a new presentation soon, giving gamers a look at upcoming titles from its studios. Capcom has announced that it will host a Capcom Showcase digital event on June 12, 3 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. The presentation will be around 36 minutes long and will feature new information on Capcom's upcoming lineup of games. The company confirmed that it will share more information on the program closer to the event and will also take the opportunity to celebrate its 40-year anniversary. 36 minutes is probably enough time for Capcom to showcase several titles, and it'll be interesting to see if the publisher chooses to reveal brand new games in popular franchises like Monster Hunter and Resident Evil. Capcom showed gameplay footage from Dragon's Dogma 2 at the recent PlayStation Showcase event, but the game may receive an extended demo in this presentation. Some fans may also be expecting news on Pragmata, a science fiction game that was originally announced in 2020 at a PlayStation event. Not much has been revealed about Pragmata since its original trailer, so the upcoming Capcom Showcase presentation may include more information on this title. Some users could also be worried about Pragmata turning into the next Deep Down, a game that was officially announced in 2013 before completely disappearing. Capcom will spend its showcase highlighting games already out and games right around the corner, such as Exoprimal. The 4-player co-op dinosaur shooter Exoprimal is set to release in just a month's time, on July 14th. Over the last year or so, Capcom has pushed Exoprimal heavily, showing it at just about every showcase event it can, from Capcom's own live streams to Sony's State of Plays. It would make complete sense then that Capcom would want to push Exoprimal once again, especially at its own event, so fans can expect to see another gameplay trailer there. The Resident Evil series may be getting more remakes in the future, as implied by a survey issued by Capcom. The company responsible for the Resident Evil series has been remaking games in the franchise, all of which have been praised, and it doesn't show signs of stopping anytime soon. Fans have been wondering whether Resident Evil 9 would be the next game developed by the company to follow the events brought by Resident Evil Village, or if another game in the franchise would get a remake instead. Recently, Capcom fueled rumors about where the series' future lies thanks to a survey that asked players about their interests surrounding the Resident Evil series. Some questions asked players about the Ambassador Program, RENet, and other miscellaneous parts of the franchise such as novels, stage performances, amusement rides, and movies. However, one of the final questions is about which game in the Resident Evil series fans want to see remade. Perhaps one of the most popular answers is Resident Evil Code Veronica, the spin-off of sorts that connects to Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 5. Many fans have been clamoring for a Code Veronica remake for a long time, even back before Capcom decided to remake Resident Evil 3. Code Veronica's popularity speaks for itself, but of course, it's hard to say what Capcom could do. Code Veronica is certainly an option, but there's reason to believe Capcom could just move on to RE5. Some people think the most likely is Resident Evil 5, thanks to a teaser during the post-credits scene of the Resident Evil 4 remake. But, it could also go back to Resident Evil 0 or 1, move on with the next mainline entry in the franchise, or any other number of things. At the same time, surveys are nothing new in the industry and don't guarantee anything. It does reassert what many already believe, that Capcom will continue working its way through the RE franchise with remakes, but what comes of that remains to be seen. In addition to Capcom, June is packed with different gaming events, as Xbox and Ubisoft are holding their own showcases in the coming days. The Xbox Games Showcase will air on June 11th at 10 a.m. Pacific Time and will be immediately followed by the highly anticipated Starfield Direct by Bethesda, while Ubisoft Forward starts at 10 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time on June 12th. Fans also have other gaming showcases to look forward to, like the PC Gaming Show on June 11th and Summer Game Fest on June 8th. Overall, it's an exciting time for video game fans, as different publishers will likely reveal new titles at the various showcase events. An executive at Lionsgate confirms that a video game based on the action-packed John Wick franchise is currently in early development. The first film was considered a comeback for Keanu Reeves when it initially premiered, filled with plenty of action set pieces, a thrilling atmosphere, and an intriguing backdrop with its neo-noir elements. This one film then expanded with a set of sequels, with the fourth John Wick film premiering in theaters earlier this year. Like the previous three movies, it received plenty of critical and commercial success. The franchise isn't stopping anytime soon, with Lionsgate looking to expand it beyond just films. These extensions of the John Wick universe have been announced as a series of spin-off media, including TV shows, films, and video games. The Continental TV series, for example, will answer several questions about the universe, while Ballerina is a spin-off movie that stars a retired ballerina assassin using lore that was established in the third film. A game based on the franchise is also in early development. This tidbit was revealed in a Lionsgate earnings call for Q4 2023, where its motion picture group chairman, Joe Drake, confirms alongside a fifth John Wick film is in early development. The studio is looking at producing a regular series of spin-offs. More specifically, it is looking towards the AAA video game space, alongside the aforementioned TV spin-offs. There wasn't much revealed about this possible game at this time, with Drake focused on the slate of TV shows and films revolving around the franchise. In terms of what's next for the John Wick franchise, Ballerina will be coming out next year, with 3 other things in production. This includes John Wick 5 and The Continental, with these spin-offs building to the 5th film. He concludes by stating that there will be a regular cadence of John Wick-related content. It's uncertain if the 3rd product is a video game, but it's entirely possible, but fans will just need to wait and see. John Wick has had a foray into the video game space before, as seen with 2019's John Wick Hex, a strategy game developed by Bithell Games and is a prequel to the films. While it's a strategy game, most fans would likely prefer a game that captures the action in the same vein as games like Slop Clap Sifu, or one that leans into Wick being a former Hitman like IO Interactive's Hitman series of games. For the time being, fans will need to wait until a more formal announcement about this John Wick game is revealed. The Shadow of the Erdtree expansion for Elden Ring will be the size of 2 DLCs, according to a recently emerged rumor. This claim surfaced online just as the fandom uncovered a new Elden Ring bug that breaks the game in a terrifying fashion. Following historic success of its latest open-world RPG, From Software officially announced the first Elden Ring expansion in late February. Since the Japanese developer shared no information about the DLC beyond its title and a single piece of concept art, the announcement fueled wild speculation about what the upcoming expansion will entail. And while the fandom is still waiting for more official news, known leaker Lance McDonald has taken online to add to the hype surrounding Shadow of the Erdtree, while also sharing some insight into its development. In a recent Discord post, McDonald stated that Shadow of the Erdtree will be an absolutely massive update on par with 2 separate DLCs, not least because the developer ended up rolling all its post-launch content plans into this one expansion. Elaborating on that claim, McDonald said that From Software originally intended to offer a season pass for the game, but ended up canceling those plans, most likely before it started updating Elden Ring's arena files that first fueled DLC speculation in late 2022. As things stand right now, Shadow of the Erdtree will be the only Elden Ring expansion, McDonald concluded. For context, this leaker is the one who first broke the news about a huge Elden Ring expansion being on the way a month ahead of Shadow of the Erdtree's announcement, so his claims hold some weight. And while a portion of the fandom might be disappointed that Elden Ring won't be treated to multiple expansions, one DLC is still an improvement over Sekiro. Shadows Die Twice, seeing how From Software's previous game received no post-launch content despite widespread pleas. The claim that Elden Ring will only get a single expansion that was originally planned as multiple individual pieces of DLC sounds somewhat reminiscent of Bloodborne. From Software's PS4 hit was also reported to have aimed for several expansions before the developer decided to roll all of its content plans into the Old Hunters DLC, which released in late 2015 to fan adoration, much like the base game itself. This newly surfaced rumor will likely remain unconfirmed for a while yet, not least because Shadow of the Erdtree has yet to be treated to a release date or even release window. According to past reports, Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon will be From Software's only 2023 release, so Elden Ring's DLC is expected to launch no earlier than spring 2024.
I can feel it.
Japanese game publisher Konami and developer Genvid has provided a glimpse into their upcoming episodic narrative set within the Silent Hill universe. The trailer teased a chilling narrative adventure that looks to delve into complex issues such as intergenerational trauma. And it also put emphasis onto the fact that players will have a direct impact on the story playing out in Silent Hill Ascension. Silent Hill Ascension aims to incorporate branching storylines and player-driven choices into the Silent Hill series, borrowing elements from Telltale Games' narrative style. Along with an emphasis on delivering both multiplayer interactivity and the signature scares of the classic Silent Hill games. As a canon entry in the Silent Hill franchise, Ascension aims to grant players a certain amount of influence over the series' fictional universe. The newly released trailer offers a glimpse into the nightmarish world of Silent Hill Ascension, featuring a host of terrifying monsters, eerie environments, and meticulously designed character models. Chris Amaral, the art director at Bad Robot Games, expressed his confidence that the attention to detail in the game's environments, combined with the realistic portrayal of characters and monsters, will enhance the horror experience and capture the essence of the Silent Hill universe while also offering a fresh and distinctive take on it. Genvid has promised that the collective actions of millions will determine the fate of the Silent Hill characters on a day-to-day basis. And even the project's creators allegedly remain uncertain about how Ascension will ultimately conclude. Apparently, the audience will be the ones to decide the destiny of multiple main characters, all of whose stories will unfold simultaneously worldwide after it releases later this year. Motoi Okamoto, a producer on the Silent Hill series at Konami, expressed his excitement about exploring new locations and introducing fresh characters to fans of the Silent Hill universe. Silent Hill Ascension will be available to play on a variety of devices, although the specific platforms have not yet been disclosed. It appears that Genvid and Konami are aiming to release a native player app for consoles, PCs, mobile devices, and televisions. Silent Hill Ascension is just one of the many projects currently in development within Konami's long-dormant psychological horror franchise. Last year, it was announced during the Silent Hill Transmission livestream, alongside a remake of Silent Hill 2, and brand new franchise entries called Silent Hill F and Silent Hill Townfall. The latter of which is a collaboration with boutique publisher Annapurna Interactive and developed by No Code. Additionally, a new Silent Hill movie titled Return to Silent Hill, helmed by director Christoph Gans, is also in the works. THQ Nordic recently released a new spotlight video for Alone in the Dark that gave horror fans a closer look at how exactly this new version of the horror classic will play. The Alone in the Dark remake features two playable characters for fans to choose from, Jodie Comer's Emily Hartwood and David Harbour's Edward Carnby. While the main story beats will mostly be the same, NPCs treat Hartwood and Carnby differently, plus there will be some slight variations in the story. This means that horror fans are going to have to play through Alone in the Dark at least twice to get the full picture. Described as a survival horror adventure game, the Alone in the Dark remake is being built with Unreal Engine 4 and will launch on October 25, 2023. Gameplay looks very reminiscent of games like the Resident Evil 2 remake and Resident Evil 4, with the Alone in the Dark remake employing an over-the-shoulder camera, exploration, and combat that would look at home in one of Capcom's games. Since the original Alone in the Dark heavily influenced the first Resident Evil game, it's only fitting that the Alone in the Dark remake is taking some of its cues from the newer Resident Evil titles. Horror fans will have to wait until October to play the full Alone in the Dark remake experience for themselves, but the good news is that a playable demo is available to try right now. Entitled Grace in the Dark Prologue, this demo is set before the events of the main game and stars a character known as Grace Saunders. Fans should be able to download the demo right now across all platforms. It should give Alone in the Dark fans a good idea of the game's atmosphere and tone, but it should be noted that there will be no combat featured in the demo. Those that are sold on the Alone in the Dark remake may want to pre-order the game. Those that do will be rewarded with the 1992 costume pack, which lets them play through the remake using character models that look like the original Alone in the Dark characters instead of David Harbour and Jodie Comer. There will also be a digital art book available as well as filters like sepia and black and white to allow users to further customize their experience. Just as the Diablo 4 beta weekends reignited interest in the franchise after a tepid response from fans to both Diablo 3 and Diablo Immortal, the playable teaser for Alone in the Dark could help pave over some of that series' missteps. Once regarded as an icon of the survival horror genre, Alone in the Dark has struggled to find its footing in recent decades. A controversial 2008 reboot failed to land with players despite featuring some innovative gameplay mechanics, and 2015's online-only Alone in the Dark illumination was savaged. Given the uneven quality level of its recent releases, even longtime fans of Alone in the Dark may be skeptical that this latest game can recapture the magic of the series' early entries. Likely adding to this skepticism is the fact that all players previously had to go on were a teaser trailer for Alone in the Dark and statements revealing that it was a reimagining of the first game. A demo, which gives players a short and spooky introduction to Alone in the Dark's Derceto Manor, should help alleviate some players' concerns. Unlike some other high-profile gaming franchises, Alone in the Dark can't rely on past successes to drive players' excitement, leaving the demo to do a lot of heavy lifting in terms of promotion. And while creating the short gameplay teaser undoubtedly added to development time, its release should help raise awareness among players who'd either never heard of Alone in the Dark or had given up on the franchise after its most recent entries. By embracing this once common staple of the era of gaming in which the franchise was born, Alone in the Dark could potentially reach a whole new audience. Even though demos don't always go over well, evidenced by the spectacularly ill-received demo for Square Enix's Forspoken, they let players know what they're in for before opening their wallets. And while the demo for Alone in the Dark is exceedingly short, it perfectly establishes the tone of the reimagined classic. Set to launch in a month already filled with high-profile horror game releases, Alone in the Dark's playable sneak peek should help it stand out among the spooky crowd. A new report indicates that the development and operation of the MMO Star Wars: The Old Republic will be moved from BioWare to Broadsword Online Games. This move allows the former to focus on single-player franchises such as Dragon Age and Mass Effect. Star Wars: The Old Republic is a long-standing MMORPG that has continued to be updated regularly after 11 years. The game is currently available as a free-to-play experience for most of its life cycle, and it has become popular among Star Wars fans. The game is currently handled by BioWare and published by Electronic Arts. Additionally, it has retained a stable player base even after the companies mentioned earlier faced some complications with their other properties. Interestingly, it seems like Star Wars: The Old Republic is going to have a change in developers, as found in a recent report. It stated that Broadsword Online Games will be in charge of the project, with sources familiar with the matter saying that it has signed a letter of intent alongside Electronic Arts to see the developer taking BioWare's mantle to provide new updates for the MMO. EA addressed the report shortly after it was published, stating that it's evaluating how we give the game and the team the best opportunity to grow and evolve, which includes conversations with Broadsword, a boutique studio that specializes in delivering online, community-driven experiences. Our goal is to do what is best for the game and its players. Some players might be familiar with Broadsword Online Games as it has developed and maintained niche MMOs such as Ultima Online and Dark Age of Camelot. The company was founded by Rob Denton, a former BioWare VP that left the company in 2013 and has worked on Star Wars: The Old Republic before. This means Broadsword might be more familiar with the MMO it will be tasked with maintaining than other developers in the industry. It should be worth noting that the report also stated that the deal between EA and Broadsword is aimed to be finalized this month. Should the deal go through, it's expected that more than half of the 70 to 80 people in the core team for Star Wars: The Old Republic will be moved to Broadsword, while the remaining staff will look for new roles at EA or face layoffs. According to the report, the reason behind the deal is within BioWare itself, as the game developer will focus all of its resources on its single-player offerings, including properties such as Dragon Age and Mass Effect. The former is currently making waves in the gaming community as Dragon Age Dreadwolf is rumored to target a 2024 release window. Some BioWare fans are also expecting an announcement to be made during this year's Summer Game Fest. Nintendo has recently sent Valve and the Dolphin emulator development team a DMCA takedown notice blocking the release of the GameCube and Wii Dolphin emulator on Steam. The Dolphin emulator had been released for use on other platforms and was due to be released on Valve's Steam service in the second quarter of 2023. The Dolphin emulator is a game console emulator that allows GameCube and Wii games to be played on PC, Android, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S, and the Dolphin emulator development team was set to bring the emulator to Steam. Fans and users of the emulator have been waiting for further news on the team's progress in porting Dolphin to Steam. However, Nintendo recently sent out a DMCA takedown notice to Valve to be passed on to the Dolphin development team, stated that the Dolphin emulator violated Nintendo's rights as per the provision of the DCMA relating to anti-circumvention. According to Nintendo, the way the emulator works means that it makes use of certain cryptographic keys without Nintendo's authorization. In a blog post, the Dolphin emulator development team explained that they have been forced to indefinitely postpone the release of Dolphin on Steam. They say that they are investigating their options on the matter, and will reach out with more information soon. This is not the first time a game and console developer has acted to block the use of emulators in this way. For instance, Microsoft employed measures to prevent emulators from being used on Xbox consoles. For the most part, however, emulators have been given quite a bit of leniency, as what they do is not necessarily illegal. While game console emulators have previously been ruled in legal cases to not be in violation of such laws as copyright infringement laws, Nintendo's anti-circumvention argument is based around a different principle. If the case is brought to court and Nintendo wins, this could possibly result in the creation of a new precedent regarding the use of emulators. The development team behind the Skyline Nintendo Switch emulator for Android devices recently halted work on the project due to the potential legal risks involved. While GitHub cited a DMCA notice in pulling the repository for Lockpick RCM, software that would allow users to dump their own Switch's security keys for use in emulation programs. The company also released a firmware update for the 3DS last week that thwarted the most convenient methods of hacking the long-discontinued line of handhelds to run homebrew programs, dump cartridges, and more. Strangely, however, Nintendo has not seemed to take issue with the Dolphin emulator's use or functions before, which raises the question of why the company chose to do so now, even though releasing the emulator on Steam would not necessarily be particularly different from releasing it on another console or service. Popular Nintendo Switch emulator Yuzu is now available for download on select Android devices. Its mobile port appeared on the Google Play Store this Tuesday, arriving amid Nintendo's latest emulation crackdown that even saw it hit Valve with a DMCA takedown notice concerning the Dolphin emulator's Steam launch. Just several weeks beforehand, Skyline, a popular Switch emulator for Android, ceased development after its creators learned they were possibly violating Nintendo's copyright by using Lockpick RCM. This tool for dumping Switch encryption keys also stopped development in early May following a DMCA takedown notice. The emulation community is speculating that the measure was issued in response to an early copy of Tears of the Kingdom leaking 10 days before the game's May 12 release, although there's been no confirmation that the takedown was actually instigated by Nintendo. And while it might appear that the Yuzu team decided to fill the Android-native Switch emulation void left by Skyline, the timing of its release is likely accidental, as ports of such complex software don't happen overnight. The official website of the project implies as much, revealing that the developers have been planning a mobile version of the Switch emulator for some time now. Android users looking to legally emulate Nintendo Switch on their smartphones and tablets with Yuzu will have to dump their console's decryption keys and game ROMs themselves. More specifically, the initial mobile build of Yuzu has only been tested on Snapdragon chips from Qualcomm equipped with Adreno GPUs. For best results, it's recommended to use the Snapdragon 800 series chipsets, which are mostly reserved for the best Android gaming smartphones, as well as conventional flagships. The developers suspect that high-end Samsung devices from the last 18 months, those using the Exynos 2200 or a newer chip, might also offer acceptable performance in many games. However, the Yuzu team hasn't yet tested that theory, as such smartphones and tablets are only available in a few, predominantly European, markets. Be that as it may, the portable port of Yuzu is still a big boon to mobile gaming and an important milestone for emulation, in general. Its arrival should also help soften some of the blows that the emulation community suffered this spring, which started when Microsoft restricted emulator use on the Xbox Series X and S, and continued with the aforementioned issues with Dolphin and Skyline. CD Projekt released its first quarter earnings for 2023 today, with sliding sales a reminder that it has been more than 2 years since its last major release, Cyberpunk 2077. Net sales were down 20% to €37.2 million, $39.8 million, and net profit was flat at €14.8 million, $15.9 million. Similarly to earlier periods, the largest contribution to our sales came from Cyberpunk 2077, said CD Projekt CFO Piotr Niloboix. That said, The Witcher 3 also enjoyed another strong quarter in the wake of its next-gen console release, which took place in December 2022. The quarter helped push The Witcher 3's lifetime sales total above 50 million copies, while the Witcher franchise has sold more than 75 million copies between the three games. It's not a secret that The Witcher 3 is one of the most successful games of all time. It's quite surprising that the game is still selling well 8 years after its release. Around a year ago, the developer stated that The Witcher 3 managed to sell 40 million units, which means that around 10 million were sold in a single year. Part of the reason for the game's enduring popularity may be the fact that The Witcher 3 is still receiving updates. The next-gen version of the title received a few updates this year, fixing a few performance issues, and improving the game's visual quality, which was already excellent from the start. But it looks better with ray tracing. Another reason for the spike in sales may lie in the Witcher series made by Netflix, which already had 2 seasons and has been a huge hit, too, introducing even more people to the saga's universe. CD Projekt isn't done with Cyberpunk 2077 yet. Between ongoing support for the core game and work on its first large expansion Phantom Liberty, the company is still devoting nearly half of its development team toward the franchise. Fans are now looking forward to Cyberpunk 2077's Phantom Liberty DLC, which is due out soon. It seems that the initial launch of the game back in 2020 is fast becoming a distant memory for some. On top of the new content, the studio is also set to begin working on a follow-up, though not much is known about this project currently. CDPR has said that the sequel to Cyberpunk 2077 will enter the early stages of development in 2024, specifically mentioning that the team already has some expenses related to Project Orion, as well as for Project Hater, the codename for a new standalone IP. The report from Tweaktown goes on to say that this initial stage, particularly in relation to research and development, represents the early phase. So it's likely going to be a long time before the next Cyberpunk game comes out. In any case, it sounds like CD Projekt Red is eager to see 2023 out with what will hopefully be a successful launch of Phantom Liberty before it makes headway on any additional games. Recent quarters have also seen an increase in the resources devoted to the next Witcher game Polaris, and a less pronounced increase for the Molasses Flood spin-off Sirius, which was reportedly rebooted late in the quarter. The company has not said when Phantom Liberty will launch, but did say it was beginning the marketing push for the expansion at Summer Game Fest in Los Angeles June 9th and 10th. CD Projekt's GOG division made modest progress during the quarter, with total revenues up 3% to PLN 41.5 million, $9.84 million, while net profit rose 63% year-over-year to PLN $248,000, $59,000. CD Projekt Red denied a recently emerged claim that it's currently in talks about being acquired by Sony. The rumor that Sony is planning this acquisition surfaced online over the weekend. Sony's merger and acquisition activities have been the subject of much speculation over the last few years. Microsoft's attempt to purchase Activision Blizzard as part of the biggest such deal in the gaming industry's history has purportedly prompted additional investor pressure on Sony to keep up. A report from last week even suggested that more PlayStation acquisitions are on the horizon, serving as a prelude to the claim that CD Projekt Red is negotiating a sale to Sony. A leaker shared a rumor recently about Sony planning to buy CD Projekt Red. The person has been known to leak news relating to Destiny, and they've mostly proved reliable with the type of information they share. This time the news came with other updates related to Sony, and fans are debating the possibility of either of these possibilities becoming a reality. It is worth mentioning this is not the first time this rumor has surfaced. The last time CDPR and Sony were mentioned together was at the beginning of March. In that instance, the rumor was that the acquisition had already happened. This was due to a screenshot of Sony's page on a market data platform called PitchBook, showing a merger/acquisition that took place with CDPR on October 26, 2022. However, no further proof was found anywhere else, and it seemed unlikely Sony wouldn't share such huge news with the world. Especially considering at that point 5 months had passed since the alleged deal. The recent rumor doesn't have any further proof beyond a Discord post. The leaker Liz, who mostly specializes in Destiny-related information, has created their own Discord server for that purpose. But this time around, they shared 2 rumors regarding Sony. The first was Sony planning to buy CDPR, and the second was about Days Gone 2 being in development. These 2 pieces of information paired this way started a debate among those who read it. On one hand, the leaker is known to share reliable details that come true, even if some minor details don't exactly match. However, Days Gone 2 cannot happen because Bend Studio, the developer of the game, fired all the leads on Days Gone and has reportedly chosen to work on a new IP instead. Because of this, I'm doubtful about the validity of the information overall. CD Projekt CEO Adam Kaczynski also shot down rumors that had circulated over the weekend that the company may be acquired by Sony. Nothing has changed on our end. I can repeat what we've been saying throughout the years, CD Projekt is not for sale. We want to remain independent, Kaczynski said in a conference call following the results. On the other hand, there are many who think Sony buying CDPR would make sense. Since Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard was announced, a lot of gamers have been speculating about how Sony would even out the playing field. With Bethesda already being part of Microsoft, people thought Sony needed to secure its own major RPG franchise. CDPR does own the Witcher IP in video games, graphic novels, board games, and merchandise, according to their agreement with the author of the books Andrzej Sapkowski. This would mean that the popular franchise could bring plenty of fans over to the side of PlayStation. However, at the end of the day, this will all remain nothing but speculation until either Sony or CDPR comes out with an official statement. While the acquisition could make sense, whether Sony is genuinely considering it remains to be seen. And while CDPR clearly isn't joining the PlayStation family, Sony could still announce at least one major studio purchase in the next 12 months, assuming it's eager to spend what remains of its previously allocated M&A budget. Embracer Group has published its financial results for the full year, showing growth in net sales across the board. But despite the solid performance in terms of sales, co-founder and group CEO Lars Wingefors opened his comments by describing the 12-month period as a challenging year impacted by game delays, weaker demand from consumers and a lackluster reception for certain notable releases. One example given was the lower-than-expected return on investment for the Saints Row reboot. Net sales were 9.4 billion Swedish kronor, $879.4 million, up 79% year-on-year, for the last quarter, and net sales were 37.7 billion Swedish kronor, $3.5 billion, up 121%, for the whole fiscal year. The biggest seller for the most recent quarter was SpongeBob SquarePants: The Cosmic Shake. While this initially performed below management's expectations, the company expects it to have a long tail of revenue. However, much of the company's growth, both for Q4 and the full year, came from its tabletop segment, led by Asmodee. However, much of the financial report was dedicated to setting expectations for the years ahead. Wingefors explained that as recently as last night, he and his team were informed that a major strategic partnership they had been negotiating for 7 months will now not come to fruition, despite the fact Embracer received a verbal commitment back in October. The deal would have included more than $2 billion in contracted development revenue over a 6-year period and enabled catch-up payments for the costs created by a range of large-budget games. Wingefors wrote that while the group has a solid pipeline of games in development, several projects will need more time to live up to our high expectations of quality and to reach their full commercial potential. Release dates have also been moving around, meaning multiple games with the potential to generate net sales of more than 1 billion Swedish kronor, $93.6 million, are now delayed to the financial year ended March 31, 2025. FY 2023-24 is not the year when we maximize the value in Embracer, but we will continue to take important steps and set the foundation for the years to come, Wingefors later added. As a result of all of this, the company has lowered its forecast for adjusted earnings before interest and tax, EBIT, to between 7 billion Swedish kronor, $654.9 million, and 9 billion Swedish kronor, $842 million, for the current financial year. The group previously forecast adjusted EBIT of between 10.3 billion Swedish kronor, $963.6 million, and 13.6 billion Swedish kronor, $1.3 billion. The current financial year already has at least one success established, with Wingefors reporting Dead Island 2 has sold more than 2 million units, the first million of which were shifted during the game's launch weekend. Dead Island 1 has sold 18 million copies, which is very impressive. The report also offered an update on the growth of the group, which now has over 130 internal development studios, 200 games in the pipeline, and 850 owned or controlled IPs in its portfolio. Embracer has been ramping up the scale of the partnerships it makes as it acquires larger IP. The company is working with Amazon to publish the next Tomb Raider game, while its subsidiary Middle-earth Enterprises is also working with Amazon on a new Lord of the Rings MMO. Embracer Group's CEO issued a firm no comment when asked about the long-awaited remake of the classic Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. The refusal to provide an answer of substance dims the hopes of longtime fans who were excited by the prospect of playing a modern interpretation of Knights of the Old Republic, a game as beloved as it was influential. Developed by BioWare, the creators of the Mass Effect franchise, Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic was an RPG with round-based combat originally released in July 2003. Players chose from 3 character classes as they and a party of Jedi, scoundrels, and androids sought to defeat the evil Darth Malak. KOTOR was set amidst the Mandalorian Wars, roughly 4,000 years before the events of the prequel film trilogy, a time when the Jedi were a large and thriving legion of galactic peacekeepers. A remake of the original KOTOR was announced during a September 2021 PlayStation Showcase event with a brief yet enticing trailer depicting Darth Malak in all his modern graphical glory, turning on his bright red lightsaber blade while shrouded in darkness. Recently, on his Game Mess podcast, trusted industry insider Jeff Grubb said that he believes, based on his sources, that the KOTOR remake might never be released. While on an investor call, Embracer Group CEO Lars Wingefors made no attempt to assuage fans concerned about the status of the remake. Aspyr Media, the developer responsible for the mobile ports of KOTOR and its sequel, was tasked with developing the remake. Just a year after it was announced, Embracer moved the project from Aspyr to its parent company Saber Interactive, a developer also owned by Embracer that's headquartered in South Florida. Saber Interactive itself owns several studios around the world. The remake is now in the hands of a Saber Interactive studio in Eastern Europe. There is currently no timetable for the KOTOR remake's release. A report from August 2022 citing sources from within Saber Interactive suggests that there were, at the time, at least 2 more years of active development necessary. Whether that is still the case remains to be seen. Fans clamoring to see KOTOR's legendary story remade with modern technology and evolved game development sensibilities might have to wait a lot longer before they even hear another update on its status, let alone see a release. A newly surfaced industry rumor suggests that Sony dealt a major blow to the possibility that Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 3 ever sees the light of day. Even though the game was allegedly planned to get made following its original cancellation circa 2005. This claim arrived as part of a wider report on the current state of the troubled Star Wars KOTOR remake. A leaker has now suggested that the work on the game prior to its sudden developer switch was actually progressing much better than previously thought, citing sources from Aspyr. His latest video published on May 23 also presents a claim that KOTOR 3 was not only a possibility but definitely part of Aspyr's long-term plans for the series, with the developer allegedly intending to start working on it after remaking the first 2 installments in the franchise. This all supposedly fell apart by mid-2022, when Aspyr is said to have presented its vertical slice of the game to Lucasfilm and Sony, with whom Embracer was negotiating a console exclusivity deal at the time. Lucasfilm loved the demo, but Sony said it wasn't cinematic enough, as per the same source, who also mentioned several lead developers were fired in response to that feedback. The latter claim was already made in a July 2022 story from Bloomberg which broke the news that the KOTOR remake had been indefinitely delayed. This turn of events supposedly prompted a mass exodus at Aspyr, with around 70 developers from the project's 200-strong team left the company in the aftermath of the studio switch. The video also mentions some previously unknown details about Aspyr's original plans for the game, including a claim that the KOTOR remake was aiming to deliver combat mechanics in the style of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Developers were also reportedly planning gender swaps for some minor characters and wanted to greatly expand on the game's quests. That notwithstanding, Aspyr was still aiming to remain faithful to the original game, to the point that it wasn't looking to introduce any new gameplay mechanics, according to the same report. With this state of flux now raising questions about whether the KOTOR remake will ever see the light of day, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 3 presently seems like just a pipe dream. Daedalic Entertainment, the developer responsible for the Lord of the Rings Gollum game released this week, already has its next project lined up. Some gamers might be surprised to learn that, despite the failings of Gollum, Daedalic's next game is also set in the Lord of the Rings universe. Daedalic is a game developer based in Germany that has published several point-and-click adventure games since the company was founded in 2007. Originally scheduled to release in 2021, The Lord of the Ring Gollum was Daedalic's first game with a massively popular franchise IP. Daedalic has since released a public letter to fans apologizing for the current abysmal state of Gollum and promised to fix its enormous number of technical failings at launch. But that won't be stopping it from diving back into the Lord of the Rings universe. According to the website of Germany's Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action, Daedalic has received €2 million from the German government to develop a second game set in the Lord of the Rings universe. The game appears to center around the wizards of Middle-earth, hence its codename, It's Magic. The website of Germany's Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Climate Action contains a brief and somewhat vague description of the project. The page claims that Daedalic's next project takes players to a lush world of creatures and magic. It then suggests that It's Magic will, like Gollum before it, tell its story from the perspective of a previously established Lord of the Rings character who has never had a story told from their point of view. Finally, the description promises that It's Magic will see the player discovering completely new regions. This makes It's Magic one of 5 Lord of the Rings games that will be released within the next 2 years. It will be interesting to see if Daedalic can, at the very least, release It's Magic in a stable state by its current projected release date sometime in the second half of 2024, considering how much work the developer has left ahead when it comes to patching Gollum's numerous issues.